Cleverly to move Amendment L.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the amendment in the name of the Leader of the Opposition and myself. At the dispatch box yesterday, I welcomed the... At the dispatch box yesterday, I welcomed the Right Honourable Lady to her role, and I would like to now take the opportunity to congratulate the wider ministerial team that work with her. They will have inherited a hard-working team of civil servants dedicated to the protection of this country and the people within it. However, I must put on record that I am sad to see the member for Aberfan Merrick has not made the transition from Shadow Immigration Minister to Immigration Minister. His contributions are, of course, a great loss to the Conservative Party. And with the member for Kingston upon Hull North and Cottingham in her new role, I am sure the clerks of the Home Affairs Select Committee will be looking forward to arranging her first session promptly and will, like me, be monitoring closely to see how quickly her new boss implements fully all the recommendations of the committee that she formerly chaired. Whilst I don't have time to mention each of the shadow ministerial team individually, I do want to pay tribute to the member for Birmingham Yardley. She knows that I was going to single her out, but I don't apologise for doing so, because I do think it is a very good appointment and she is very well suited to her role. She knows that tackling violence against women and girls was a priority for me, and we shared the stage previously at events in this House on that subject. And I genuinely look forward to working with her and contributing in any way that I can to her success in this incredibly important area of public policy. She has highlighted some of the crucial work that, that this place can do in bringing to the attention of the country and the wider world the plight that too many women still feel. This election highlighted the incredibly important work of the Home Office in defending democracy. And I pay tribute to my friend and colleague, the former Security Minister, for the work that he was doing with the Defending Democracy Task Force. And again, this is an area where we seek to be a constructive opposition. I was disgusted to see how the member for Birmingham Yardley and others, so many others, mostly female colleagues and candidates, were treated during this general election campaign. And it is something that no one who cares for democracy, irrespective of their party affiliation, should be willing to tolerate. The Defending Democracy Task Force continues to have incredibly important and urgent work to do, and we should continue to work together as we did when our roles were reversed, to root out violence, to root out intimidation, and to make sure that candidates and members of this place can vote with their conscience and campaign with their hearts, free from the intimidation or threats. Now, Mr. Speaker, whilst the Prime Minister has been enjoying his honeymoon period at NATO and welcoming visitors to the European political community event at Blenheim Palace, an event very well organised by his predecessors in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the same honeymoon sadly cannot be afforded to the Home Secretary. Members of this House will of course be familiar with the 7 days of creation. The new Home Secretary has managed 7 days of destruction. She, on day one, cancelled the partnership with Rwanda, taking away the deterrent, a deterrent which the National Crime Agency said we needed in order to break the business model of people smuggling guns. On day 2, in doing so, on day 2, she created a diplomatic row with Rwanda, who sadly had to read about that government decision in the British media rather than receiving direct communication from this government, a level of diplomatic indecency which will, I think, cast a shadow over the relationship, not just with that country, but with many others. On day 3, she announced an effective amnesty for tens of thousands of people who arrived here illegally. We said that the incoming Labour government would do that. They promised they wouldn't, and yet that's exactly what they did. On day 4, she started work getting back into the EU through the back door by negotiating to take more migrants from the continent. On day 5, a Labour government minister went on national radio to advocate the relaxing of visa rules from the EU before being slapped down for saying the quiet bit out loud. On day 6, Home Office figures released by the government show that the visa curbs that I put in place when I became Home Secretary have cut migration by 48% compared with last June. She can thank me later. And on the 7th day, I suspect she probably tried to get some rest, but she will now know what I have long known, that as Home Secretary, you don't get the luxury of that day of rest. And so despite a terrible first week of weather to bring in the new Labour government, what we saw was almost 500 asylum seekers arrive in that week on small boats. And as of today, she will be making a speech in due course. Almost 500 arrived in the first week. And as of today, since Labour took office, more than 2,000 asylum seekers have arrived in small boats. And the second week at work was not much better. We have seen, she has an opportunity to speak in a moment. We have seen riots in her back garden on the streets of Leeds, and police officers clearly not confident that they will enjoy her support, having to take a back seat. Take back our streets was clearly, like so much of what was said ahead of this general election, just a Labour slogan. And then what we saw, Mr. Speaker, Neil Basu, someone I've worked with when I was on the Metropolitan Police Authority, a very highly respected former police officer, and General Stuart Skeets, senior official at the Home Office, again, someone who I've worked with in a former life as well as Home Secretary, ruling themselves out of leadership of the new so-called Border Security Command, because they know, I am sure, what we know, which is it is little more than a fig leaf to hide the fact the Labour government is doing less on migration and hoping to achieve more. The reality is, everybody knows, including the people smugglers, that the small boats problem is only going to get worse under Labour. And I will give way.
I thank the Shadow Home Secretary for giving way. It's a shame to puncture his fantasy and bring him down to the real world, in which he and his party have trebled net migration and left us with the highest level of spring boat crossings on record. But perhaps he could answer just one factual question. He has spent £700 million over 2.5 years running the Rwanda scheme. Can you tell us how many asylum seekers he has sent?
As I said on the radio this morning, if the Right Honourable Lady is going to pluck figures out of the air, you should avoid nice round numbers, because it's a bit of a giveaway. She will know that we brought people. She will know that we brought people into detention. We had chartered flights, and the fact that the new government scrapped the scheme, and as I say, with a degree of diplomatic discourtesy, didn't even. And honourable members can groan from the benches opposite, but they will get used to the fact. They will get used to the fact that you cannot treat international partners in this way. Our relationship with Rwanda was entered into in good faith by both parties, and the Rwandans discovered that the incoming government was tearing up that bilateral relationship in the pages of the British media. And she should learn that her new Foreign Secretary should have had the courtesy, the diplomatic courtesy, to at least pick up the phone to his opposite number in Rwanda and explain what was going to happen before they read about it in the British press. And she and I both know that her government would not have acted with that level of vile discourtesy had that partner been a European country. We know that to be the case. And they can groan all they like, but we all know that is true. Now, the simple fact of the matter is that this new Border Security Command replicates in all respects the work of the Small Boats Operational Command, and it took almost the whole of the general election campaign before the Right Honourable Lady clarified or attempted to clarify the roles. We still have very little clarity on the division of labour between the so-called new Border Command and the Small Boats Operational Command. And yesterday, at the dispatch box, she tried to imply that there had been no returns under this government. But let me just put some facts and figures on the record. For example, last year, we returned more than 25,000 people to their home countries, including almost 4,000 foreign national offenders, in order to keep ourselves safe. Foreign national offenders, which I will remind the House, her Prime Minister in his former guise fought tooth and nail to prevent being deported. And voluntary and enforced returns were both up by more than 2/3 at their highest level for 5 years. Operations done by our immigration enforcement officials, which sounds a lot like a returns unit to me. And guess what? I'm not sure what she was doing whilst in opposition, but she may be surprised to learn that we were indeed smashing the gangs. And we were making sure that people were arrested and incarcerated. Last year, we smashed almost 100 criminal gangs through our law enforcement agencies. And I remind the House that Labour voted against the Nationality and Borders Act, which is the legislation that we have been using to incarcerate those people smugglers. They voted against that legislation. The Labour Party in government are now so worried about continuing the reputation for being and looking weak on immigration that they felt the need to announce a whole raft of things to sound tough, but basically already existed. So they announced the Border Security Command, even though there's already a Small Boats Operation Command. They announced a returns unit, even though immigration enforcement already does that. What are they going to announce next? What are they going to invent this time round? The RAF? I look forward to seeing what functions are already going to be replicated. But we will look at legislation when it comes forward. But as I have discussed, the government already has the tools it needs. And as long as it doesn't undermine its own efforts by scrapping more things, then we might see an opportunity for them to reduce numbers, in large part because we passed the Safety of Rwanda Act and she has tools at her disposal. Turning now, Mr. Speaker, to legal migration. I remember coming to that dispatch box in December of last year and presenting the House with a series of visa curbs to cut net migration. With our measures, 300,000 people who came here last year will no longer have the right to come, reducing migration by a record amount. And already, the data is showing that because of the actions I took as Home Secretary, visa applications are down by 48% compared with June last. And on the current trajectory, net migration is set to halve in the next 12 months, thanks to the actions that I took, actions that were opposed by the Labour Party at the time. Now, the Labour manifesto said that net migration would come down, but not by how much. And I've already said the first 50% of that reduction is because of actions I took. Perhaps in her speech in a few moments, the Right Honourable Lady can confirm how much further than that 50% she envisages bringing net migration down. They talk tough ahead of the election about clamping down on employers bringing in foreign workers, but those plans have apparently now been shelved as we saw nothing of them in the King's speech and we've not heard anything more about them. Mr Speaker, turning to policing and crime, I am delighted to have my honourable friend, the member for Stockton West, as the Shadow Minister for Policing, Fire and Crime. Of course, there are many brilliant things about Stockton, a place that I visited and enjoyed. He, of course, is one of those wonderful things. And I welcome the plan set out in the Crime and Policing Bill in the King's speech to tackle issues such as antisocial behaviour, retail crime, knife crime and drive-up standards in the police force. Of course, I welcome them because these are issues that I put forward when I was Home Secretary. And the government can therefore count on our general support for these measures if they bring forward detailed proposals which properly address the issues. And I really hope the Right Honourable Lady has more success getting her colleague, the Mayor of London, to focus on bringing down violent crime in our capital city than I did. And we, of course, will scrutinise the legislation alongside the Victims' Courts and Public Protection Bill. Over the last Parliament, it was the Conservative Party who put 20,000 new police officers on the streets. And at the election, we promised to hire an additional 8,000 police officers, full-time, fully warranted police officers to protect our neighbourhoods. During the general election campaign, the Labour Party made no such commitment, limiting their aspirations at only 3,000 full-time, fully warranted officers. I hope that they will actually match our commitment to 8,000 full-time, fully warranted officers. I will give way.
I think the Shadow Secretary of State should also remember that the Labour Party actually opposed our measures in bringing in 20,000 extra police, and during the general election committed to 13,000 extra neighbourhood officers, which many police and crime commissioners have said cannot be funded because they were not clear about how they are funded. Isn't it the case that this party has a track record on delivering on more policing and the government have no idea whatsoever?
I'm very proud of the fact that in many parts of the country, including my own county of Essex, there are now more warranted police officers than at any time in that force's history. In sharp contrast with Labour-run London, where the Conservative government put money on the table to recruit extra Metropolitan Police officers, and the Labour Mayor of London has spectacularly failed to recruit those officers, has not backed those officers when they've said they needed to do more stop and search, has seen knife crime accelerate, distorting the whole national picture. So I really hope that the Right Honourable Lady takes this seriously. She can chuckle all she likes, but this is about kids getting stabbed on the streets of London, and she should take this more seriously. She should take this more seriously. We introduced tougher sentences. She should recognise that we introduced tougher sentences under the Public Order Act to clamp down on disruptive protests, the benefit of which we have already seen this week with the jailing of Just Stop Oil protesters, as well as plans to grant the police further powers to clamp down on protests that go too far and disrupt the lives of people around this country.
The Shadow Home Secretary from giving away. He knows he should not make disgraceful, unfounded allegations like that about my response to knife crime when he knows I have met with families right across the country who are devastated by knife crime, including in towns and smaller communities and suburbs right across the country where this terrible crime is going up, and where his party, when in government, repeatedly failed to bring in the bans on serious weapons on our streets. Will he now support this party and this government when we bring in the bans on ninja swords as well as on dangerous machetes that he should have brought in long ago?
Mr. Speaker, I made the observation that whilst I was talking about young people getting stabbed, the Honourable Lady was chatting and chuckling with with her colleagues on the front bench. That was a statement of fact. The point is that we have got a grip of crime, and in the parts of the country controlled by Labour police and crime commissioners, including London, sadly that is not the case. I will give way to the gentleman.
Right Honourable Gentleman for giving way, and I have a lot of respect for him, but he will know from his tenure as Home Secretary that these sorts of crimes, stabbings, shootings, are happening in towns and cities across the country. Not just cities, they're happening in towns like Warwick and Leamington, where we've had someone shot dead through drug dealing and many people killed or stabbed maliciously and some killed. The reality is that under his watch, the last 14 years, we've seen a denudation of the number of police officers on our streets and rising knife crime. Does he not accept that?
Here.
Mr. Speaker, the figures speak for themselves, and people will be able to see the difference between the levels of crime, including violent crime, in Conservative-run parts of the country, and they can compare that with Labour-run parts of the country. The figures in the public domain, anyone can check them. Unfortunately, it appears that the government has not seen fit to lay out their plans to address the issue of violent, aggressive, intimidatory or disruptive protest. And I hope for the safety of our streets and for the confidence of the officers who need to police protests that they do the right thing and that they change that vacuum where policy should be. Under Conservative leadership, we announced a raft of changes to support victims of domestic abuse, putting more abusers under management of the police under increasingly strict arrangements, by designating violence against women and girls as a national policing priority, a national threat on par with the threat of terrorism. And as I've said, she and her front bench colleagues should know that I will always give my wholehearted support in actions that they take to protect women and girls. We have made improvements through Operation Terrier. We changed the way the investigatory system operates to ensure that victims of rape and serious sexual assaults could get justice, and that we provided specialist training for officers. And we have been committed to ensuring that rape victims feel confident to come forward and to continue to report, because we know the sad truth that even with the good work of Operation Soteria, far too few women come forward, and we want to encourage them to do so, and we will support the government in any action that they take in this area, and I will give way.
I thank the Shadow Home Secretary for giving way on that really important point, and he'll recognise that one of the areas and issues that we've all campaigned on is the fact that many of these women do not come forward because they have no trust in the police. And one of the key issues we've been working on to try and get senior officers to be able to suspend those police officers who are found of wrongdoing. Does he agree that we need to make sure that that works now so that those women can have the confidence to come forward, including where those allegations are against other police officers?
The Honourable Lady is absolutely right. And although it didn't make its way through all its parliamentary stages, the proposals that we put in the Criminal Justice Bill strengthened the accountability framework for officers, strengthened police leadership to take actions. Again, I hope that the government will continue on this incredibly important work. And once again, I put on record my willingness to support the government in ensuring that the disciplinary practices within policing give women confidence to come forward, and I will give way.
Giving way. Isn't it not true, Minister, that the net number of policing is lower after 14 years of a Tory government? There's a net loss to policing. And also, does the Shadow Minister agree that the reason why we haven't hit our numbers in London for the Met Police is because we're in special measures and there needs to be caution over the police that are recruited. So therefore we need to make sure there are good police officers, so it's over quality, not just quantity.
So I disagree with her assessment about police numbers. That doesn't accord with the figures that I have seen. Police numbers are up, and we had plans to put even more. And I get the party loyalty towards the Mayor of London, but the simple fact of the matter is all police forces have to ensure that their vetting procedures are in place. The vetting procedures for the Metropolitan Police are no more onerous than for other forces around the country, and yet other police forces, many other police forces, including my own, have record numbers of police officers. The Metropolitan Police is the best funded police force in the country. It is the best funded per capita in the country, and yet, with all the freedoms that the Mayor of London has, with all the money that was put on the table, he has failed to recruit the police officers that the capital city needs. And that has an impact not just on the people who live and work in London, but the visitors and the people who travel through it. In a constantly evolving criminal landscape, we delivered the Online Fraud Charter, a world-first agreement with 12 of the biggest tech companies signatories to proactively block and remove fraudulent content from their platforms, with Facebook, Instagram and Amazon amongst those key signatories. We introduced the National Security Act, the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, and we prescribed Hizbut Tahrir, Telegram and the Wagner Group to make promotion and membership of those organisations illegal. And so, to conclude, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Right Honourable Lady has a tough job. Home Secretary will always be a tough job. But we have ensured that our time in government, that she has more police officers at her disposal, she has an effective border small boats operational command, an effective immigration enforcement command. She has a suite of legislation to allow her to match the rhetoric of the campaign with her action in government. She's inherited falling net migration figures, a growing economy, a large parliamentary majority to ensure she gets her business through the House. And whilst we will be critical when the government makes mistakes, and we will seek to ensure that they do the right thing, we all have a desire and indeed an interest for her department to succeed, and on that point I wish her the very best of luck.
The original question was that an humble address be presented to His Majesty as on the order paper, since when Amendment L has been proposed as on the order paper.